Hi guys, so today's video is going to be another work video, and I am going to pick up where the last one left off, but unlike the last one, I'm going to go over a span of several years. I won't be, that was unique, that sort of deep dive into that one job, so I'm going to pick up from where I left off. So I left that job from the previous video in December 2015. I left the job. Um, Now, I mentioned some of this in the previous video. By October even, I was starting to have mood swings, and in mid-November, I called to make an appointment with my psychiatrist, and they said Dr. So and so doesn't work here anymore. You need a referral from your family doctor to see someone else in the practice. So I went to my family doctor, got the referral. He was not impressed. He said that that's not proper practice. He should have had someone else see me. But regardless, that's what they made me do. So I got the referral. This was November. I got the referral. They called me with an appointment date for February, late February. Um, I don't like speaking badly of Canadian healthcare. If I'm not talking to other Canadians, because I don't like to give the wrong idea. But I can't lie. The wait times, especially, I can't speak for the rest of the country either. But the wait times where I live in the Toronto area, can be ridiculous, can be problematic. In my case, maybe they could have adjusted my meds or recommended some therapy or something, and I could have maybe continued to work. Instead, I just went more and more downhill. I ended up leaving the job in December. I ended up being like so deep in this depressive episode. I was staying up till 7 in the morning, eating cake for dinner. I was just totally out of it. And it's frustrating because when I did get to the psychiatrist, she made like she switched out one med and jacked up the dose of the other med, and I was fine in like 2 weeks. So if I'd been able to get an appointment when I needed it, maybe I would still be at that job. Maybe things would have gone a lot differently. I don't know that. It's all hypothetical. So what did happen was after I quit the job, sort of the rest of December and the beginning of January, I was totally out of it. And then as I was starting to feel a little bit better at points. I would have moments where I felt a little bit better, and I started thinking, I don't want to move back home. Maybe I should start looking for work, because I can't afford the apartment on just my benefit. So I started looking around. The thing is, I was looking for something extremely simple, mindless, by myself, and literally the only thing that I could find that seemed to fit was crossing guard, school crossing guard. So I went ahead. I knew it wasn't going to be much money, and I figured it's better than nothing, and I can add in more jobs. So I went ahead and applied, and the interview was almost a formality. They hired me, and they gave me a location, which was pretty close to me, and I thought this would work out. And then at the last minute, they tell me, by the way, your location's here. They were sending me somewhere that was quite far. I would have been spending like 4 times more time on the bus than actually working. And I said no to that location. And then they were gonna have me be a supply crossing guard, so I'd have to be up and ready to go in case someone called in. So at that point, I said no, thank you, and dropped the crossing guard thing. And I sort of started the depression started rearing its head again. So I did end up moving back home in early February. I did not have enough money without a job to support myself in the apartment. But I was still determined at that point to get another job, and I did keep looking, and I applied. I'm looking at notes here. I apologize. I applied for a job at IKEA in the children's ballroom. I have an early childhood education diploma. I am more than qualified for that job. I aced the phone interview. This would have been February, maybe early March 2016, by the way. So I aced the interview on the phone. I came in for an in-person interview. I thought everything was fine. They sent me an email, um, saying that I wasn't qualified for the position, and basically wouldn't give me any feedback. and I know I don't interview well, and I want feedback, and no one will give it, and it's extremely frustrating. So the IKEA thing didn't happen. So if you'll remember, I talked about using an employment agency in the past. So I didn't want to go back to the one I had because, like I said, she hid in the woodwork for 2 years and didn't do much. But somebody I spoke to through an autism service recommended me to the March of Dimes, and initially I said yes, and then this was February 2016. When this initially happened, so this was before the IKEA application. I went to like an orientation. I didn't even know what to call it. I had to sit through a thing with the March of Dimes, and then she said the next step was a resume writing workshop, mock interview, and I got very overwhelmed. Keep in mind, I was not in the best state of mind. I got very overwhelmed and decided I didn't want to do it. But then after the IKEA thing didn't work out, um, I tried going. I'm jumping a bit here. I'm sorry. I'm very tired today. After the IKEA thing didn't work out, I very briefly tried going back to the employment agency. Because even though, like I said a minute ago, she was in the woodwork and most of the time, she did come up with a good job at the end. So I thought, let me go back to that agency. They even gave me back the same worker, and I asked her to contact IKEA for more feedback. And I think I asked for the file to be closed again 3 or 4 weeks later because I could not get through to her. She was not picking up the phone. She was not answering her emails. So I told them to close the file, and I went crawling back to the March of Dimes. And by this point, I was getting into a better headspace as well, because we're now getting into like April, May 2016. I was in a better headspace. So I went crawling back to the March of Dimes, and I said, I'll do whatever the steps are to get into your services. I went through the thing. There was a lot of talk of the movie theater near my house, and I was very excited. They hire people with disabilities there who just take tickets, who don't work other tasks. And I was very excited about that, and they said they would help me with that. I have no idea what happened there. They said they couldn't get through, they didn't have a good relationship. Um, they weren't really that useful for the movie theater thing. But then what ended up happening, the job I talked about in great detail in the previous video, the supervisor, even though we didn't see eye to eye on everything, in a lot of ways was very accommodating of me. And even when I quit and left them in the lurch, she even had tried offering me an olive branch of a supply position there. So I decided on my own to contact her, and she was willing to take me over the summer. Over the summer, instead of just 2 preschool rooms, they have 4 school-age rooms and 3 kindergarten rooms. So there's a lot more stuff that needs to be done at lunch. And she was willing to hire me for this position. And the March of Dimes was going to support me. So I got hired back to Cliffwood. Oops, I'm not supposed to say my employer's names out loud. Or in these videos, I should say. So you didn't hear that. So I got hired back to that daycare center, and almost immediately I started suspecting something was wrong because it was literally 3 hours a day. I worked 11 to 2. The first bit was sort of setting the tables for lunch. Then we would serve the food, and then while the kids were eating, we would put out the cots for nap time, and then we were washing dishes. And so literally I was working 3 hours a day, and yet I was exhausted. I was in pain. It was baffling. And within the Wednesday or Thursday of the first week, and I could barely get out of bed. I was so exhausted. And I started cluing in that I might have fibromyalgia because my mom has fibromyalgia, and the way I was feeling seemed very similar to what she was describing. So I started questioning that. Um, my doctor was on vacation, so it took a while to get to him to get a referral. He did refer me to a rheumatologist, but then I had like a 4-month wait for an appointment. So it wasn't until November 2016 that I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So back to the job. The summer went, I think, pretty well. The guy I was working with had done it quite a few summers in a row, and I think his expectations were pretty high. But I think it went well overall. I did my best. And then the supervisor was willing to keep me on after the summer, although it was going to be at the end of the day from like 4 to 6 p.m. Basically was washing dishes from their afternoon snack. And that didn't last long. I just, in the summer, she was actually even giving me Wednesdays off at one point because I was so exhausted. And what I can remember from that September 2016, I think I lasted 2 or 3 weeks. I was exhausted. I was in pain. There were two dishwashers, and I was favoring one that was much faster. And the supervisor's like, "You need to use both." I'm like, "I can't walk back and forth between the rooms." I don't think she believed me because that sounded so ridiculous. But it got to the point where I could not do the job. And I left the job in September 2016. And I decided to just wait and see if I got a fibromyalgia diagnosis and go from there. So the rest of 2016, I did not work. I did not attempt to work. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in November 2016. In January 2017, January or February of last year, I started seeing a pain specialist, and he put me on prescription medications for the fibromyalgia. And I still have a lot of fatigue, but it helped the pain a lot. And I'm blanking on a detail here. It did help the pain a lot, and by around summertime, I started considering going back to work. I was doing better mentally, physically. I actually went to London, England in May and did all this walking, had these really long days. So after doing that, I thought, you know what, I'm ready to go back to work. I'm ready to start looking again. So I contacted the March of Dimes, went back through that process because they were helpful the first time. So I thought this will be good. So I contacted the March of Dimes, and that didn't last very long, like everything else it seems, before I asked to close the file. Because I remember that IKEA job that I wanted so badly. It came up again, an availability came up again, and I sent the link to my worker, and I'm like, please help me apply for this job. I tried on my own, and they wouldn't hire me. And she fought me. She's like, you said you didn't want a responsibility. You said you didn't want this, that, and the other. Um, she was very uncooperative with that job. And between that and the fact that the only other job they came up with for me was a mascot, they wanted me to dance around in a bear costume. So between those two things, it was going nowhere fast. So I closed the file again and decided to try and look on my own, see if I could come up with anything. And I actually did. Well, I did one and my mom did one. I put a profile on a website called care.com. Actually, the profile was initially put up in like 2013, and then I had it deactivated for quite a long time. So I reactivated my profile on care.com, and someone contacted me about babysitting a 12-year-old girl with autism on Monday nights, and she hired me in September 2017, and it's currently February 2018, and I'm still doing it. I go most Mondays. Sometimes she doesn't need me. It's usually only 2 or 3 hours, but she pays well. And I'm actually like, and I don't see and I'm stammering here. It's good because I'm not having to do a lot of social things. It's like I talk to the mother when I get there when I leave, and most of the time it's just me and the child. And similarly, the other thing I'm doing right now, I'm volunteering in the cat adoption area at a PetSmart. That also started in September 2017 because my mom saw a sign on a door and I went and applied. And I go there every Wednesday for 2 or 3 hours, depending on how many cats are there. I clean the cages, freshen the food and water, play with the cats. And again, it's unfortunately not a paid position, but it's great because I'm mostly by myself. It's mostly me and the cats in the room. Sometimes members of the public want to come in to see a cat or ask a question, but because it's not heavy duty social stuff, it's just what's this cat thing? Can you tell me about this cat? My daughter pet the cat. I can handle that now. Although when I was younger, I couldn't even have handled that. And not that many people come in either. Maybe because I'm there over dinner time. I chose times that worked with the buses, which happened to also be a quiet time. So it's going very well. So currently I'm doing those two things. And I'm going to wrap up there because I do plan to work enough again one day to support myself and blah, blah, blah. I have all these goals. So that's going to be the next video. I'm going to discuss my sort of plans for the future. Thank you.